So, I've been using the 2021 MacBook Pro 14-inch for a very long time now. I work in tech sales, I do lots of design stuff and other creative endeavors on the side, like producing music for instance. And so what I want to do is detail my experience using it. This way you can get a good idea about whether it's something that will suit you as well. So in terms of aesthetics, it does have this kind of boxy utilitarian shape, this design, which some people like, some people don't like. I happen to really like it. I think it looks very modern, it looks very sleek, and I think everyone knows exactly what a MacBook Pro looks like. In terms of the keyboard and trackpad, I think this keyboard is one of the best ones that I've used on a laptop. It really does strike that balance, in my opinion, of not having travel, which is too deep to slow you down. So it has that kind of still clicky, tactile feel. But also you can type quite fast on it because it's quite compact. I also should mention the keyboard itself offers a good compromise in terms of form factor, and then also being able to use the function keys, for instance, right? So previous MacBooks didn't have that function key row, and so this keyboard feels very functional. It's also fairly comfortable. Some people have said that they find that the sharp edges are quite difficult to type on, but I've not really had that be an issue of mine actually. In fact, this is my favorite laptop to type on. I'd say that the experience of using the trackpad has been very smooth. The gestures that you use on the laptop feel very natural, and you can also modify those to fit however you want to use them. Important to mention here would also be the Touch ID, because you can actually use that to verify things, for instance in Safari if you're purchasing something, or even just passwords, and that's not something that I see very often in other laptops. There's a lot of interconnectability between the MacBook and then also the Apple ecosystem. If you're looking at passwords, for instance, you can also use your Apple Watch to verify. I don't think I can use a laptop now that doesn't have that, because just typing in the password every time is just not that fun. Okay, well, so HDMI port for one. It also has 3 Type-C ports, those Thunderbolt ports. You can actually charge from either one of those. You also have a high impedance headphone jack for driving higher power headphones, and also an SD card slot as well. Over there on the left as well, we have that MagSafe connector, which is one of my favorite connectors because it actually allows you to charge your laptop. It's just sort of a magnetic connection, and then you can actually just pull it off. And that makes things much safer, because if people trip over that laptop, for instance, it's not just going to come sliding off the desk. And also it has this lovely indicator light on it, which you can use to tell when it's charged. I think that's very cool, and I want to see more laptops using some kind of similar feature to that too. Oftentimes I'm producing music, and so what I'll do is plug in my audio interface and also a MIDI keyboard, and so that's very useful to have and be able to just plug them straight in without having to use a dongle. You might also consider that for presentations, right? So if you're doing lots of work presentations, it's easier to not carry around a dongle, and because this has a built-in HDMI port, you can plug that straight in and then you can just get going on your presentation. More and more commonly these days with laptops, only a couple of ports are available on the laptop, and it just feels like everything's shrinking down. But it's good to see that on this MacBook there's many different ports, many different I/O options that you have. The display's, pretty much second to nothing else. We have pretty much a 4K display here. It has an mini LED panel, which basically allows it to get deeper blacks because it can switch off individual pixel zones, and the colors seem very accurate too. So they kind of pop out the screen. It has that HDR display as well, which means that it can get really bright. Like when you're watching Stranger Things, there's lots of kind of dark scenery. And on many laptops that can kind of seem blown out, a little bit washed out maybe. But with this laptop, it feels very, very high end. And especially because of those deep blacks and accurate colors, it does actually make the movie experience much more immersive.
And I'll work to contain the situation until 11 is ready. In the meantime, it is of vital importance that you do not speak to anyone about this. No.
And also the audio, the speakers that this laptop produces, insane. I have a friend who came over and was listening to some music on the laptop, and he thought that I was using a Bluetooth speaker, right? Because the speakers on this laptop are just that good. They have this kind of ability to be quite loud and also bassy, and then also very clear. So overall, they're quite, I would say, well-rounded speakers. In my opinion, the ProMotion display thing is pretty overrated. It's cool to have. Everything does feel a bit smoother, I would say. At the end of the day, it doesn't make that much visual difference. So yeah, this is the base model with 16 gigs of RAM. It has that M1 Pro chip in it, and then also a 512 gigabyte SSD. Performance-wise, I'd say this is pretty good, pretty top of the range. When I use this laptop for multitasking, and by that I mean, I have maybe a Slack window up, word processing on the side, so cost referencing, product description, 30 tabs open in, all of that, it just handles no problem at all. I would also say that the form factor or size of this laptop kind of in that midpoint where you can still throw it in your bag, but it's also big enough that you can actually, you know, have split screen windows open and it doesn't feel too cramped. So I would say that that's something that you don't get on a smaller laptop, and especially kind of 13-inch and below. It's really difficult to have enough space when you're multitasking. And it also has that notch. I mean, it's not really that big of a deal to me, to be honest. But housed within it is a very good 1080p webcam. You can also use Apple's continuity camera. You can use your phone camera as a webcam feed, and it looks pretty awesome. So it's way better in low light situations. But even the 1080p webcam on the laptop itself is pretty good too. Okay, so we already talked about MagSafe, so you know how to charge the battery, but what kind of battery life does this laptop get? So Apple quotes about 11 hours of battery life when surfing the web, but they also quote 17 hours of battery life on streaming digital content. So how accurate is this? Well, I would say it depends on what you're doing. If you are just doing general web browsing, general web-based applications, the battery does actually last a long time, at least a day, usually, in my experience. So if I'm just doing regular Slack work and I'm, you know, compiling notes on Microsoft Word, all of that will usually just last a day. But if you're doing stuff like Zoom calls all the time and you're doing, you know, lots of music production work on Logic Pro, or you use Final Cut, for instance, all of those are going to drain the battery life much faster. In general, you don't have to worry about battery life with this laptop. I mean, if you're taking it to school, you don't need to bring the power brick, really. I mean, it's really that awesome. I like this new Apple Silicon generation of things, because before you definitely had to take that power cable. If you didn't have to use it, then you were lucky. But if you're doing anything which required more power, you would definitely need to take that with you. And that was cumbersome. Yeah, I mean, it's not always been amazing. Sometimes, because of how powerful this laptop is, you can have a lot of things running and you don't even notice because, you know, it's actually running quite smoothly. But maybe it'll get a bit warm. Or maybe sometimes your battery life will just suddenly degrade and you'll wonder why the hell you have to plug it in all of a sudden. Yeah, there's also some weird kind of software bugs for some reason. Safari itself can be kind of trash. It's gone a bit better with updates, but sometimes I would search something and just nothing would appear. So if you imagine just searching on Google Chrome and just not seeing any results at all, that's like the exact opposite of what a browser is supposed to do. I couldn't even really use Safari for my schoolwork. It wouldn't play embedded videos. So there's some problems that you'll run into probably as well. I should note though that some university students and some people do struggle running software. There's often very different versions of the software compared to Windows, and most people will use Windows machines, and so it's difficult to find compatibility sometimes. No issues using, you know, Microsoft Office Suite, Slack, you know, WhatsApp, Google Chrome, all of that just works pretty seamlessly. In my opinion, window management on the Mac does leave a bit to be desired, and so I personally like to use Magnet, which just allows you to resize windows and put them up against each other, because Apple just doesn't have the Windows management that Microsoft Windows has. I would consider buying the M1 MacBook Air. Really think about if you need the additional power that this laptop can provide for you, the 14-inch, because, you know, you might like the portability that comes with that older M1 laptop, right? Because you can actually just pack it in your bag the same way, but it's a little bit thinner, it's a little bit lighter. It does have even better battery life. So, I mean, that's something to consider. It is half the price. And if you don't need that much performance, and that little thing is a firecracker, it does have very good performance as well. But if you don't need the additional performance, then you should really consider just buying that one, because it costs so much less money. Yes, I do think that you should probably buy this 2021 MacBook Pro, even in 2022 or 2023, because I think it offers a very good balance in terms of usability and also performance, because it really opens the doors for you creatively, because you can use those more powerful features which you'd find in higher end desktops or higher end laptops because of that M1 processor. Thank you very much for watching my first video in a while. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more general content. So I don't like having to set all this stuff up. Like I don't understand that. I just don't understand what these windows are.